You know that gut-clenching anger when you do everything right, but the people around you just refuse to respect boundaries? That's exactly where I found myself. I spent thousands of dollars, endless hours of training, and all the patience I had only for my neighbors and their out-of-control dogs to tear it all apart. But the day came when I stopped being the quiet, polite neighbor and decided to give them exactly what they deserved. And trust me, they never saw it coming. If you ever felt powerless watching someone trample over your hard work, then stay with me. Because this story is about how I turned frustration into the most satisfying kind of revenge. All right, let's start from the beginning. I've got 3 dogs. They're my family, my daily joy, and honestly, a huge part of my life. From the moment I brought each one home, I made sure they were trained, disciplined, and above all, safe. If they bark outside, straight inside, no excuses. Obedience classes? Done. Daily routines? Locked down. I took pride in the fact that when someone visited, they were always shocked at how calm and well-behaved my dogs were. And then my new neighbors moved in. They also had 3 dogs. At first, I thought, great, maybe they'll be fellow dog lovers. Maybe our pups will become friends. But I learned pretty quickly that not all dog owners think the same way. Their dogs were chaos on 4 legs, barking nonstop, jumping, lunging at everything that moved. And the worst part? The owners seemed to take pride in it. When they saw me gently correct one of my dogs, making sure they didn't bark at someone walking by, I caught the look on their faces. Insecurity, irritation, almost like my dog's good behavior was a personal insult. And sure enough, the comments started. Don't do that, they'd tell me. They're just being dogs. They're doing their job. Translation? They didn't want to feel guilty about the fact that their dogs were wild, reactive, and completely untrained. But I kept to myself. My yard was fenced in with a beautiful white vinyl picket fence. $8,000 of security and peace of mind. And honestly, I thought that fence would be enough to keep us separated. I couldn't have been more wrong. It started small. One of their dogs, the biggest one, would slam itself against the fence whenever mine went outside. At first, I thought it was just noise, maybe intimidation. But then I heard the sound, claws scraping against vinyl, the full weight of a dog hurling itself into panels. Over and over again, my stomach dropped. That wasn't just barking. That was an animal trying to break through. I remember standing on my porch, heart pounding, calling my dogs back inside as fast as I could. I could see the whites of their dog's eyes, the foam around its mouth as it lunged. And all I could think was, if this fence gives way, if just one panel cracks, my dogs are in real danger. I tried to be reasonable. I really did. I thought maybe I could fix this myself, avoid a fight with the neighbors. So I spent another $1,000, privacy backing for my fence, plus 15 boxwoods I planted by hand, sweat dripping down my back as I dug hole after hole. I thought, maybe if their dog couldn't see mine, it wouldn't go berserk. But when I was halfway through planting, the husband walked out, smirked, and actually said, "That's not going to work. They'll still hear each other." His voice had this mocking edge, like he was laughing at me for even trying. I swallowed my frustration, forced a smile, and kept digging. But inside, I was burning. Spoiler? He was right. The plants didn't stop a thing. The privacy fence didn't stop a thing. Their dog still hurled itself at mine, harder than ever, and every time I heard the thud of impact against that vinyl, my chest tightened with dread. So I did what any sane, responsible person would do. I crafted the most polite, carefully worded text you can imagine. I explained the situation. I told them I was worried the fence would break. I even offered solutions. Maybe you can keep your dog inside. When mine are out, maybe we can alternate times. I ended the message with a line that cost me more pride than I want to admit. I really want to maintain a good relationship with you guys. Their response? Blame. Pure blame. Somehow it was my dog's fault. Somehow I was overreacting. And then the wife's texts started coming in, long, rambling, guilt-tripping messages about how my message had ruined her week, how stressful this all was to them, and how I actually owed her an apology. I sat there staring at my phone, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. How could someone twist things this way? I was the one paying thousands, breaking my back planting bushes, losing sleep over the safety of my pets. And she wanted me to apologize? It didn't stop there. A few days later, I walked outside and nearly laughed out loud at what I saw. They had built a brand new 6-foot privacy fence, bolted directly onto mine. Technically, it was a legal height for our area, but you know what? I didn't report it. Why? Because now I didn't have to see their smug faces over the fence line. Let them think they'd won. I was too exhausted to fight. But of course, it wasn't over. They started letting their dogs off-leash in the unfenced areas of their yard. I'd look out and see them running wild through the street, tearing through my garden, charging right up to the fence again. And this time, I wasn't just worried about my own dogs. I was thinking about the families in the neighborhood, the kids who walked home from school, the elderly couple who liked to stroll past in the evenings. That's when I made a decision. I was done playing nice. I was done letting their denial put everyone at risk. I went out and bought security cameras, installed them myself, every angle covered, and within a week, I had everything I needed. Footage of their dog slamming into my fence. Footage of their other two tearing through my garden beds. Footage of all three sprinting into the road, tails high, barking at strangers who scrambled to get out of the way. And then came the final straw. One afternoon, their dog launched itself at the fence again while I was standing right there with mine. The panel shook so hard, I thought it would snap. My dogs barked in panic, and instead of apologizing or calling their animal back, the neighbors started screaming at me, cursing, yelling that my dogs were the problem. I called the police that day, and you know what? The lieutenant himself told me to keep the footage coming. Every time, he said, every single time. He'd find them, he'd build a case, because now it wasn't just my word. It was undeniable proof. For the first time in months, I felt the power shift. I wasn't a frustrated, helpless neighbor anymore. I was the one with evidence. I was the one with the law on my side. And no, did that infuriate them. And that was only the beginning. You'd think that once the police got involved, things would calm down, right? That maybe, just maybe, my neighbors would take the hint, rein in their dogs, and stop pretending they were the victims in all this. But no, that would have been too easy. See, when people like them get backed into a corner, they don't take responsibility. They lash out. They double down. And that's exactly what happened. After the lieutenant told me to keep sending in every clip, I actually felt hopeful. I finally had backup, someone who saw through their lies. I remember him shaking his head, almost in disbelief, when he saw my footage. This isn't just a nuisance, he told me. This is a safety issue. Keep documenting everything. His word stuck with me, a safety issue. Not just me being dramatic. Not just me being too sensitive like the neighbors claimed. This was real, serious, and the law was on my side. So that night, when I lay in bed, I actually felt a small weight lift off my chest. For the first time in months, I thought maybe I could rest without jumping up at every crash against the fence. But then the text started again. Long, unhinged rants from a wife. She accused me of harassment, of ruining the neighborhood atmosphere, and of trying to turn the police against them. It was almost laughable. Here I was with literal video evidence of their dogs running into the street, while she was spinning some fantasy where I was the villain. I didn't respond. I didn't need to anymore. Every message, every insult, just became more proof of who they really were. And honestly, ignoring them drove them even crazier. The next week, I caught more footage. Their dogs, off-leash again, tearing into my garden. My plants, the ones I'd carefully tended, watered, nurtured, shredded like paper. I could almost hear the smug satisfaction in their silence when I walked outside and saw the damage. And yet, thanks to the cameras, I had everything I needed. I emailed it straight to the lieutenant. Within a day, I knew they'd been fined. That's when the shift happened. The neighbors stopped pretending to be friendly. They stopped with the fake smiles and forced greetings. Now, whenever I saw them, their faces twisted with pure hatred. The husband glared. The wife muttered under her breath, loud enough for me to hear. And yet, despite their anger, they couldn't do a damn thing. Not with the law breathing down their necks, and my cameras catching every slip-up. It was strange, though. Part of me still wanted to feel bad for them. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm not the kind of person who enjoys conflict. I never wanted war with them. I just wanted peace for my dogs to be safe. But every time I thought about forgiving, about letting it go, I'd hear another thud against the fence or see another pile of mess in my yard, and the sympathy would vanish. One night, I was out back with my dogs when I noticed something unusual. Across the street, in the wildlife refuge area, I saw them walking with their dogs. It was quiet, peaceful, until it wasn't. The dog squatted, did its business, and the neighbors just kept walking. Didn't even glance back. No bag, no attempt to clean up, just left it there. And that's when the pieces clicked in my mind. For months, our neighborhood Facebook group had been full of complaints. Mystery poop everywhere. People were frustrated. Some even said they avoided certain blocks because of it. And here in front of my eyes was the answer. It was them. It had always been them. I felt this rush of vindication, almost electric. It wasn't just me anymore. It wasn't just my dogs on my fence. They were making the entire neighborhood miserable. And now I had proof. I went home, pulled the footage from my camera, and watched it again, frame by frame. The neighbors, their dog, the pile left behind. Clear as day. For once, I didn't feel helpless. I didn't feel trapped. I felt powerful. And that power, it tasted sweet. Still, I didn't rush to post it right away. I wanted to play this carefully. So first, I reached out to our community leader, sent him the video, explained everything. His response came quickly. Post it. People deserve to know. Not only that, he also asked me to email it to every resident so no one could claim ignorance. I hesitated for a moment. Part of me worried it might make things worse, that the neighbors would explode with anger. But then I thought about all the times I'd stood shaking on my porch, calling my dogs back inside as they're slammed into fence. I thought about the nights I lay awake, heart racing, waiting for the next crash. And I realized they'd taken enough from me. They'd taken enough from everyone. It was time to give a little back. So I did it. I posted the video publicly in the group. Then I sent out the email to every single resident. And the reaction? Oh, it was everything I hoped for and more. The comments poured in. People who'd avoided walking down our block because they felt unsafe. Parents who said they'd been worried for their kids. Neighbors who admitted they always wondered who the phantom pooper was. And now they knew. The truth was out and it spread like wildfire. And the best part? The community leader himself went straight to their house, knocked on their door, looked them in the eye, and told them their behavior was unacceptable. He even said he'd be bringing it up with the police. For once, it wasn't just me against them. It was the entire neighborhood. I sat on my porch that night, watching the sun dip behind the trees, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. The neighbors had finally been unmasked, shamed publicly, fined privately, and stripped the power they thought they had over me. But here's the thing about revenge. Sometimes it doesn't end with one blow. Sometimes it keeps rolling like a snowball gathering speed. And as much as I thought this was the end, I had no idea just how much sweeter the justice would get. Because this was only the start of their day. I wish I could tell you that after the neighborhood found out, the story ended there. That the public shaming, the fines, and the truth finally forced my neighbors to change. But people like them, they don't learn. They don't reflect. They stew. They simmer. And eventually they explode. The morning after the video went public, I stepped outside to let my dogs into the yard. The air felt different, quieter, almost heavy. And then I heard it, a loud slam, their back door hitting the siding. The husband stormed out, muttering loud enough for me to hear. Unbelievable, petty loser. I didn't even look at him. I just stood by my dogs, arms crossed, pretending I didn't care. But inside, my heart was racing, not with fear this time, but with something sharper. Satisfaction, because for once, I didn't have to defend myself. The neighborhood already knew. They could curse my name all they wanted, but no amount of shouting could erase the videos. Evidence doesn't lie. The comments on the Facebook post were still coming in. Some neighbors were furious. Others joked about organizing a poop patrol. One woman even admitted she'd stepped in their dog's mess with her toddler in tow and had wondered for months who was responsible. Now she knew, and she wasn't holding back her anger. The wife tried, of course. Oh, she tried. She posted some long, self-pitying rant about how certain people in the neighborhood were targeting her family, how they were being bullied, and how everyone needed to stop ganging up. But the replies were brutal. People reminded her of the videos. People listed their own experiences, seeing the dogs run loose, hearing the barking, dodging piles in the grass. It wasn't bullying. It was accountability. And for once, she couldn't twist the narrative. I watched it all unfold from the sidelines, coffee in hand, scrolling through the comments with a grin I couldn't hide. Months of frustration, fear, and wasted money. And now, finally, the tables had turned. But here's where it got even better. Later that week, I came home to flashing lights outside their house. A police cruiser parked right in front. My stomach flipped as I slowed down, pulling into my driveway. The officer was standing on their porch, notebook in hand, while the husband argued, his arms flailing. The wife stood behind him, red-faced, shaking her head. I didn't know exactly what it was about. Maybe another loose dog, maybe the fines piling up, maybe even a community leader following through on his promise. But I didn't need to know. What mattered was the look on their faces. Desperate, cornered, powerless. For months, that was me. For months, I was the one standing on edge, waiting for the next problem, the next excuse, the next gaslighting text. And now, it was their turn. That night, I sat with my dogs curled at my feet, the glow of the TV flickering across the room, and I realized something. Revenge isn't always about one big, dramatic moment. Sometimes it's slow. Sometimes it's built brick by brick, until one day, the wall of truth crashes down and buries the people who deserve it most. And for me, that wall was built out of evidence. Videos, screenshots, proof. They couldn't spin it, couldn't deny it, couldn't wriggle free. The real cherry on top came a few days later. I was walking my dogs, enjoying the fresh air, when a couple of neighbors stopped me. People I'd seen around but never really spoken to. One of them smiled and said, "Thank you. Seriously, we've all been dealing with this for too long, and you finally stood up." I felt a warmth spread through me, not pride exactly, but relief, validation. For so long, I questioned myself. Was I overreacting? Was I making too big a deal? But here were my neighbors, confirming what I'd known all along. It wasn't just me, and now nobody doubted it. Meanwhile, the neighbors kept their distance. They avoided eye contact, no more smug comments, no more mocking. Their dogs were suddenly quieter, more contained. Not perfect, but noticeably different. Like they finally realized the spotlight was on them, and one more mistake could be the last straw. And every time I glanced at the cameras, every time I replayed a clip, I felt that sweet, undeniable rush of victory. Not because I wanted to be cruel, not because I enjoyed watching them squirm, but because justice, real justice, had finally caught up to them. For months, I've been the one planting bushes, adding privacy panels, bending over backward to avoid conflict. I'd been the one carrying the weight of their irresponsibility. But now, that weight was gone. They carried it instead, in fines, in shame, in whispers from every neighbor who now knew the truth. And me? I got to sit back, sip my coffee, and watch karma do what it does best. So tonight, as I look out at my yard, my dogs lying peacefully in the grass, the fence still standing strong despite everything, I can't help but smile. Because this story didn't end with me being frustrated and powerless. It ended with them exposed, humiliated, and forced to face the consequences of their own choices. And the best part? Every single word of it was backed by video. Solid, unshakable, proof. In the end, that's what made the revenge so satisfying. Not yelling, not fighting, just truth, shining bright enough that everyone could see it. And once that happened, there was nothing they could do but choke on their own lies. So yeah, tonight, instead of stewing in anger, I get to relax. They got called out publicly. shamed privately, fined repeatedly. And I got my peace back. And let me tell you, it feels damn good. When I think back to everything that happened, it almost feels like two different lifetimes. In the beginning, I was a neighbor who tried too hard to keep the peace, who spent money I didn't need to spend, who bent over backwards to avoid conflict. And now I'm the neighbor who proved that sometimes the best revenge is patience, persistence, and letting the truth speak louder than any excuse. It's strange, isn't it? How people will twist things, blame everyone but themselves, and act like the victim even when the evidence is stacked against them. My neighbors were the perfect example of that. For months, they gaslit, lied, mocked, and played the innocent card. But the moment proof came out, silence. The moment the whole neighborhood saw the truth, their power disappeared. And that's what sticks with me most. How quickly arrogance can crumble when it's faced with reality. I won't lie to you. There were nights when I sat awake, replaying everything in my head, wondering if I was being too harsh. I'm not a vengeful person by nature. I don't look for fights. All I wanted was safety, peace, respect. But when people refuse to give that, when they put others at risk just to avoid responsibility, sometimes the only option left is to let their own actions catch up to them. And the beauty of it? I didn't have to scream. I didn't have to threaten. I didn't have to stoop to their level. I just collected the truth, quietly, calmly, piece by piece. And when the time was right, I let it shine. That's the thing about karma. It doesn't always strike fast. It doesn't always come with fireworks or big dramatic scenes. Sometimes it's slow, patient, creeping closer with every mistake someone makes until one day, it's too late for them to escape. And watching it unfold, watching them go from smug to desperate, from confident to cornered, it was the sweetest closure I could have asked for. Now, when I step outside and see my dogs running happily in the yard, tails wagging, ears flopping, I feel a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. They're safe. I'm safe. And the neighbors? Well, they're living with the consequences of their choices. And here's the lesson I hope anyone listening takes away. You don't have to fight fire with fire. You don't have to scream louder to be heard. Sometimes, the smartest thing you can do is gather proof. Stand firm, and let the truth expose people for who they really are. Because no lie, no manipulation, no victim playing can survive against undeniable evidence. So, if you've ever felt powerless, if you've ever felt like someone was walking all over you, remember this story. Remember that even when it feels like you're drowning under their noise, their lies, their arrogance, patience, and persistence can turn the tide. And when it does, that victory is not just sweet, it's unforgettable. So tell me, what's the most satisfying moment of justice you've ever seen? I'd love to hear it. And if this story gave you chills, smash that like button. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of karma, justice, and revenge that will keep you hooked from start to finish. Because trust me, this isn't the last time you'll hear about someone getting exactly what they deserve. Until next time, stay patient, stay strong, and let karma do the heavy lifting. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and brings you more satisfying revenge stories every week.